All right, we are live on YouTube. UGTV will follow and should be soon. Live on UGTV.
Well, it looks as though we're a little bit after 5 o'clock and all the members of the committee are present. So we'll start the community development standing committee forward to announce that due to COVID-19, some members of the committee, some staff, and some of the public are attending remotely via Zoom, as well as some who are on site. All participants who are joining by computer or by phone should make sure that their devices are muted when not speaking so that we can avoid background noise. During the meeting, we ask that everyone please make sure you announce yourself by name and by title every time you speak so that the public who is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. So with that said, we want to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee, and I'll ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Roll call: Walters.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here. Thank you so much. Our first item of business. Well, first of all, there were no revisions to the agenda after it was originally published. So our first business is approval of our standing committee minutes from our meeting of August 31st, 2020.
Walters, move for approval.
Excuse me.
Burrows, second.
Oh, Commissioner Townsend, I see you have your hand up.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I actually am seeking a correction or an amendment to the minutes concerning some of the statements attributed to me. And I'm looking on a printed page. I have a printout, and the page number of the comments that I'm referring to start at page 15 and then go on to 16. What I'd like to have amended on page 16, there's a sentence that says, a lot of constituents I've talked to still have kind of a comma, I'll say sour taste in there. And at that point, the written word is month. It should be mouth or mouths, plural. But to be totally accurate on that section, I see some other things that I think are not exactly what I said, and that's due to the situation that we're in. So there may be other things in there that are not as I said them, but didn't come out quite clearly in the transcript or when the transcript was being heard. So my request is for the section that starts on this written page 15 that says Commissioner Townsend said, Mr. Knapp, I too think we're going to have, for that section to be reviewed by our clerk or that office. So that would be my request, to have this entire section reviewed and then brought back at a later time, because I know at least one of those words is not correct. Other than that, I have no other requests for amendments to these minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend. I guess my question for the clerk's office would be, would it be easier to simply put off approval of these or consideration of these minutes until our next meeting, until such time as corrections can be made and brought forward?
Yes, we can certainly do that. However, sometimes when we're transcribing minutes, when they're, sometimes it's kind of choppy. And so we're trying to grab as much of the data as we can when we're transcribing, but we can certainly review that portion that Commissioner Townsend is referencing and make the necessary adjustments and bring it back at the next standing committee meeting.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. And Madam Clerk, I would
Of
be,
the members of the committee, that would be my recommendation.
See,
Go
you're
ahead, Commissioner
breaking up
Townsend.
now, Commissioner McKiernan, so we won't be able to grab that information. It's kind of choppy sometimes.
So this is Commissioner Walters. I moved for approval, so I'll withdraw my motion and move that the minutes be reviewed and brought back next meeting.
Commissioner Townsend, second.
All right, Bridget, I believe I have corrected my choppiness, so I should be clear the rest of the evening, hopefully. So at this point, we have a motion and a second to bring those minutes back at our next meeting after everyone has had a chance to review and potentially correct those. And at this point, I just ask that if anyone on the committee objects to that motion, if you could just say object or nay, and otherwise we will just take that course of action. Hearing none from the members of the committee. Commissioner Townsend, if you and the clerk's office can review and correct, we'll consider those at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely, you're welcome. That then brings us to our committee agenda. There are two items on the committee agenda tonight, and the first is a resolution for a revised memorandum of understanding for the Quindaro Ruins Project and appointment of a board of directors. And on the agenda, it says that it's submitted by Gordon Criswell, but I believe he is out, and I believe Mr. Waters, will you be presenting that for the committee this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so we previously came in August with this memorandum of understanding between the Unified Government and the AME Church. Since that time, outside counsel that's been working to draft the documents has advised us that he thinks it's better to set up this as a nonprofit corporation instead of a trust. There's a couple of reasons. Says that it's easier to get grants and funding when you're set up as a nonprofit. It's just something that more people are used to rather than the trust setup. Also, the 501c3 provides better protection for its board members. So he just advised simply changing it. And so the memorandum of understanding that's attached as the exhibit is exactly the same as the previous one. We just switched the word trust with corporation. So that's the only change to the memorandum. The only other additional thing is that in the resolution, we formally authorized the mayor to appoint those board members. And so the resolution adds that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. I do appreciate that. I'll ask if any members of the committee have any comments to make or any questions of you regarding this new MOU. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Counselor, I'm glad you made mention of the fact that I think this version, if I recall, is slightly different with the a mayor appointing a specified number of people. I know the last time this came to us, I was so focused on making sure the map that was an attachment to the resolution and the memo be detailed enough. And I think that is going to help us a lot in the future. So I don't recall that it named or specified the number of people the mayor could appoint. And while I agree that the mayor, should have some say in this, I really think that of those 3 positions, at least one of them should be appointed by the in-district commissioner. I think that would be appropriate to make sure that someone from that district or someone that whoever the in-district commissioner is at the time has a direct say in that. So I'm sorry if I missed that before, but I feel strongly enough about that to put that on the record. So that is something I'd like to see changed.
Sure. I guess we could either, if the committee agreed, we can make an oral amendment and we could change it before it goes to the full commission, or I could come back next month with a revision.
Okay, whichever way you want to do it, that's fine if we could make that, but I'm looking long-term. I don't want this to be misconstrued by any means as something negative on the mayor. I'm looking not only short-term, but long-term. And there is and has been so much interest in what's going on there that I think it would certainly be appropriate for whoever is in the District 1 position to have the opportunity to appoint at least one or sit on that committee if he or she chose to do that. So however we could propose that, whether we take it back or do it by oral amendment, and if you require motion, then I so move that change be made.
Second, Johnson.
Thank you. And if I'll just clarify one thing, I think we've got, I'm unclear as to whether the motion is to amend orally this evening or to have Mr. Waters take it back for revision and then bring it back to this committee at a later date.
Well, we can make the oral motion. That's fine. I don't think that we need to bring it back if the other commissioners are so willing to support this motion. I will note, though, if we make this change, that there will be other language in this memorandum and possibly in some of the other attachments that may need to be updated as well. So.
Commissioner, I think we're okay because the memorandum simply says that the unified government will appoint 3 members and it doesn't specifically say who. So I think we can just change the resolution language and the MOU should be good.
Well, I think it would be good that what was it that you said? The second one, that the language be made specific. If we're doing this now to specifically state that the mayor and or the in-district commissioner is going to appoint X number of people, then I think all of the documents on that point should clearly say that.
Okay.
And not leave it so ambiguous as just the unified government. But
sure, I can make that change. Well, okay, I just want to make sure. I can't remember if the AME Church has already signed this version of the memorandum, but I don't think it should be a big deal if they have to re-sign a new draft. So, so I don't think they've signed this new version. So I think we're okay. I can make that change before full commission and present them with the new language. So I think.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be okay.
Okay, so the motion here is to accept the resolution with the understanding that the language will be modified before it is presented to full commission, such that the mayor will appoint 2 members of the board of directors, and the in-district commissioner will appoint the third. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question, Commissioner Burrows, and this goes back to Commissioner Townsend's comment. And Patrick, I believe she's talking about item 6 on the MOU. I
Right.
think the language is in there that I think that was the concern that I'm to understand that Commissioner Townsend raised, as well as the appointment in number 1 of the resolution. If those are the 2 areas that need to be addressed, I just want to make sure that those are the 2 items that we're talking about that Commissioner Townsend brought forward.
And Commissioner Burrows, those were the 2 I saw, but I additionally saw on the resolution itself, item number 3, it says the mayor CEO shall have the authority to fill any vacancies. And I think that that should be clarified, that the mayor CEO can fill vacancies of his or her 2 appointees, and the in-district commissioner can fill the vacancy of his or her appointee.
Yeah, I've got,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we just want to hit all of those places to address Commissioner Townsend's concerns. And I agree. I think the local commissioner should have some standing in that.
And I agree with both of the points that you made. I didn't identify them specifically for fear of missing one. So I'm going to leave it to council to go through and make sure that all of these are consistent. Going to section 3, in fact, of that original, was it the resolution that talked about the mayor CEO shall have the authority to fill any vacancies and to replace any previous appointment made by the same mayor. So you're right, now with this other correction or addition or amendment, that should be amended to allow for the in-district commissioner's appointee as well.
Correct. I'll do that.
On the MOU, it does allow flexibility for the number that are appointed. So I would hesitate to put the number that the mayor appoints in the resolution. I think it's fine to put the number that the commissioner would appoint for the district. But number 6 of the MOU sort of just always keeps the majority control by government of the directors. So it looks like that number may fluctuate on how many directors there are.
Well, I think we've enumerated that several times. So just to be consistent, I can't even remember which document it says clearly that over time the number on the board may vary, but
Right. If it increases or decreases, then it just adjusts. So if it were to go to 9 members, then the unified government would have 4, to AME's 5. And so then it'd be, so yeah, it just, we've left in there so that if the final articles of incorporation were to change the number of directors, the number of appointees that we have would adjust accordingly.
Right. So I wouldn't put a set number in. There was a reference made to a set number in the resolution, or excuse me, MOU, and I wouldn't put that in there. I'd leave.
Yeah.
So
I think I have sufficient direction. I think I can make those changes for full commission.
thank you, Mr. Waters. That was going to be my question as to whether or not we had direction for the amendment. So the motion is to amend with the thoughts presented here and bring it to full commission for final approval. Commissioner Johnson, are you okay with that motion?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Then that second stands. There's been a motion and a second to move forward as directed. I'd ask if there's any other discussion among the committee. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much, Mr. Waters. We'll look forward to that document coming back to full commission. That then takes us to the second item of the committee agenda, and those are land bank option applications. And we have several of them tonight. And as usual, I'm going to turn it over to Judd Knapp, who will present those option applications to the committee.
Hello, I am Judd Knapp, the interim land bank manager. This month we have 4 projects up for your consideration. There are 2 single-family homes and 2 commercial, and they are a projected increase in appraised value of $750,000 for those 4 projects. For 2020, totaled up, we have 42 projects on land bank lots, and that's an estimated increase in appraised value of $6.2 million. This month we also held virtual meetings. The first meeting we held was the staff advisory board that highlighted the needed approvals that the applicant would need. Then contacted the applicants and shared that information with them about what steps they needed to help their project to complete. And then those steps are found in the next step section on our slides, and their staff committee recommend is the areas where they have recommendations, and 2 out of the 4 projects today have recommendations from the staff. We also held a virtual meeting with the advisory board, yes, and we recorded that meeting and sent it to the ones that could not attend. The majority of the advisory board approved of the projects. 3 did not, and it was a policy disagreement, not against the projects themselves. So our first project for consideration is at 643 North 54th Street. It is for a new single family home. This is right just north of the Deffenbaugh dump. They plan to build a log cabin, looking log cabin with the 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2,400 square feet. The next steps were none were given from the staff advisory board. It's all that is needed for the land bank to deed the property to them of a building inspection, building estimate, and proof of funds to cover that building estimate. And the 2 recommendations at the bottom are the check marks from the staff advisory committee and the land bank advisory board. The next project is Megan DUMA. It's for a single family home also. She currently owns 2706 Esplanade Lane. And she's requesting the following lots. 2725 Glen Rose Lane is right here, and she's planning to build a single family home. This will be a short-term rental. And she's also requesting 2731 Glen Rose Lane, planning to build a home within 5 years. And 2725 Glen Rose Lane needed for the sewer connection for this 2731 due to the creek that's running by here. The building details is 1,000 square foot residential on the top floor. This is kind of like a barn dominium home, and 1,500 square feet for the barn space below. And the barn space below is going to be used to store equipment for their on-site garden. It's the residential unit, 2 bed, 1 bath. The next steps are planning approval, potential need for a special use permit due to the garage use and the short-term rental. The staff recommendations below are review of the sewer connection issues in the area, and the staff only recommends the option on 2725 Glen Rose to build this building here, and the staff is not recommending 2750 Glen Rose. No construction is planned on that lot, and 2731 Glen Rose 5 years construction plan is outside of the 1-year option structure that we currently have. And then also the review for the special use permit for the garage and short-term rental. The next one is our first commercial property. This was a applicant that came to us last month for like 16th and Minnesota to try to build this building. And during our staff review, it was deemed that he could not build that building there because it did not meet the master plan. So we met with him after the meeting, and we found him another property that we had available, probably suits his needs even better than the 16th of Minnesota. Here's a picture of the building that he's already built in KCK, that he plans to build 2 buildings on Minnesota. Last month, he was only supposed to build 1, but this lot allows him to build 2. Each building is 3,200 square feet, 1 or 2 offices, and it'll be ideal for a small contractor business. The next steps is planning approval, building inspection approval, building estimate, and proof of funds to cover building estimate. The recommendation from the staff and Land Bank Advisory Board is good to go. The next application is at 1032 South 25th Street. This is also for commercial. It is for a 3,200 square foot building. Their construction experience on this one, they're just going to hire a company to build it. This one needed some planning approval. The staff advisory comments from this building were the building would need 15 feet on each side to meet the screening guidelines. This would make their building only 20 feet wide. So after this meeting, I contacted the applicant and said, your building is only going to be 20 feet wide, not 40 feet wide. And they said, go ahead with the project. We're okay with the 20-foot building.
And Judd, if I could stop you there for just a second, just to add a little more context to the recommendations. Both the Staff Advisory Committee and the Land Bank Advisory Board both recognize that the zoning is correct in this location, assuming that the, as Judd mentioned, the screening and different guidelines are taken into account and done. There is no technical issue. That being said, we did hear from both staff and the Land Bank Advisory Board that no one really loved this idea. And if you could go back, Jed, to the previous slide, you can see that while there are a number of kind of different uses of this location, this particular lot is actually surrounded by, on either side, there are 2 single family homes. So again, it is zoned correctly, assuming the screening and all of that is done. There are no technical planning issues. There were a number of comments whether this is really, however, despite the zoning, still an appropriate use with single family on either side of this lot. And I think.
Okay, with that said, oops, yeah, I'm unmuted. With that said, Mr. Knapp, do you have any other presentation on any of these?
I do not, Commissioner.
Okay, so let me just, and Commissioner Johnson, I see that you have your hand up, and at least one of our attendees also has a hand up, but let me just review for just a second. We basically have 4 applicants here tonight. Let me make sure that I understand. The first applicant, ENDICOTT, the staff is recommending approval of the option.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
The second applicant, DUMA, the staff is recommending yes on one of the 3 parcels, 2725.
Yeah, Judd, can you go to the map? Yeah.
So the staff is recommending yes on 2725, but no on 2731 and 2750.
Correct.
On the next FANKHAUSER on Kansas Avenue, the staff is recommending yes.
Yes.
And then on this final one, the initial staff recommendation was no, given the narrow structure that would be constructed once you meet the screening setback guidelines. But my understanding is that the applicant says, that's okay, I can work with that. And having said that, is the staff's recommendation still no on this, or has staff changed recommendation?
Well, I will say the staff's recommendation was never specifically no. It was that 40-foot by 50-foot building could not happen. So once the applicant said that's fine, we can do a smaller building and do the requisite screening guideline, meet the screening guidelines. So this one's just a kind of an odd one, because by all, this is kind of where you all come in as the policy folks, but it meets all the planning requirements, zoning, etc. So yes, it is technically recommended. It fits with everything that the city has put in place for this location. That being said, you know, we all did want to point out that it is surrounded by 2 homes. So it's just a little unique.
Okay, so as you said at the very end, although the zoning is appropriate, staff has concerns about this building in between the 2 existing structures.
Correct.
Great, thank you. At this point, we'll open it up to the committee for comments or questions. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any problems with any of the items as identified. Not Judd, I think I appreciate the work that you're doing with this program. I think that the notion that we have some advisory attendees that have concerns with regard to policy. I just want to state for the record that we, to the chair and to Catherine and to you, Judd, that I'd like to see some type of meeting convened to address those concerns, to make sure that we don't continue to have, I think, the dissent from those parties on an ongoing basis. And I just want to make sure that I address that and make that request known. Other than that, I'm good.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. That is something that we will undertake as soon as we can, because this has come up more than once, and we want to make sure that we get resolution on it. Does any other member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp or Ms. Carter? Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Townsend. I had a question about the proposed build at 2725 Glen Rose Lane. This is for what? An Airbnb?
Commissioner Townsend, I'm looking over in the attendees list, and I see that Ms. DUMA, who is the applicant for this property, is attending the meeting. And if it's okay with you, I might turn it over to her so that she can explain her intent for each of those 3 properties, and then be available to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would be great to hear from her, particularly with regard to that one. That's what my question really, my concern really addresses.
Fantastic. Rocky, if we could work to get Megan DUMA, and talking is permitted. Ms. DUMA, it does look like that you are authorized and you are unmuted. So if you would just share your thoughts on your application for each of these 3 parcels.
Yes, certainly. And thank you, everyone. At 2706, the property that I currently own, I have a valid special use permit in place for a short-term rental for that property. We haven't had any complaints. There's been 0 problems. People love this property, but it turns out I actually love it too a lot because it's wooded and it's beautiful. And I want to plant a personal garden for myself on 2725. And in order to support that organic garden, I've already hired an arborist and he was one of the first guys that set up the Brookside Farmers Market and did organic farm to whatever there. No, it's not for commercial purposes. It's because, I don't know, I'm kind of geeking out on this. I want to plant a garden there and then have the barn dominium support my garden. Now, I potentially anticipate it being an Airbnb. Ms. Townsend, but that's kind of down the line. It might be a long-term rental too. I don't know yet. I probably wouldn't want to even like bridge the special use permit until I've built it, because I've got to renew my special use permit every year. And so it's going to take me a little while to build it. And I don't want to waste a year and my time with the long special use permit for an Airbnb if it's not even built yet. And I may do long-term rental there as well. I don't know. And so that I threw that out there as kind of what I was thinking, but I do operate 10 Airbnbs in Kansas City legally. And that's an idea to support the expense, because a lot of the homes in that area are not worth the $200,000 that I'm gonna have to put in to build this. Construction is really expensive right now. And I've owned and operated as a woman-owned business, a construction company. I was certified by the city of Kansas City, Missouri for a number of years. I have experience in construction. I'm also a lawyer, and I also operate Airbnb. So I do a lot of weird kind of things, but this property is really special to me, and that's why I'm kind of advocating for it. My dream is to build my primary residence for my personal home on 2731. And down that vein, I had retained Brent Thompson to help me with surveying and figuring out how I could do this. My biggest problem with building my eventual home on 2731 is that I don't have sewer, and that's very expensive. You can see where the sewer lines are. There's those green lines. And the way the lots are set up right now, it's gonna be difficult to get past what I call the river that runs through it. So what I anticipate ultimately is I'm building the barn dominium on the top side. I guess that would be the north side, or maybe the east side, the northeast side corner. I'm building the barn dominium on that side of the creek. So the same side as the home that's on 2706. Then my plan is to try to redraw the lot lines. So the bottom half of 2725 and 2731 and part of 2706 all make one big lot. Because I know it's hard to tell from looking at a map, but when you're out there, it doesn't make any sense to have a property where your river runs through it and you can't get across it. So that's my goal. And what I was thinking was I may be able to use 2750 if I can buy an easement to draw the sewer that's existing and then maybe get it across. Now, I'd be willing to give up 2750, no problem, and then hope maybe the city puts in a sewer, soon. But as it exists, because 2750 is a hill, it's a steep hill, bad topography, no sewer. So it's really difficult to do anything there. 2731, I want to make it a bigger lot that makes more sense with respect to how the property is laid out. And yeah, this is kind of like that's my plan. And that's why I really would ask that the council not just go with what the recommendations were. The recommendations are there because there's this policy that if you don't build a house, you don't get the lot. Well, these things are going to sit there and they're not going to do anything. They mean a lot to me. I want to live there. I am building there. I do care. I have the proof of funds. I have everything ready to go. And I'd ask that you deviate from their recommendations, please, because I do have good plans for these lots that are going to increase value. And I love this property.
Thank you, Ms. DUMA. Commissioner Townsend, any reaction or comments or questions for Ms. DUMA?
Yes, thank you, Ms. DUMA, for your extended explanation. And the things you're doing aren't crazy. That's what's called being an entrepreneur. So I have a lot of respect for that. Having said that, my impression from what you said about 2725, correct me if I'm wrong, is that even if there is not a short-term rental, I understand you already have one in the area, you would still build within a year. Is that correct?
I'm ready to build now.
Okay.
As soon as I have the deed, I've earmarked $100,000 of my own money to start building, but I plan on getting a loan. I can't get a loan from a bank if I don't have a deed.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, since you don't know if you could get a short-term rental, let's say this is an Airbnb, if you would still be interested in the property. So you're still ready to go forward to build under the 1 year with this option application, whether or not ultimately you get the short-term rental agreement.
Yes,
or
ma'am.
permit.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Now, with regard to the 2731, I have to tell you that I, for one, do not believe that if you're building in 5 years, that is within the purpose and tenor of this land bank option agreement process. And that type of thing, I believe, is one of the objections some of the neighborhoods have. If you're going to build within the year, fine. But I believe, as the advisory committee indicated, that 5 years is too far down the road for this process. So, but thank you for your other investments in Wyandotte County. One last thing, this barn dominium, explain exactly what that means. What is the barn part of this? And I don't know if council or someone present could tell me if that would raise some type of special use permit or variance requirement in and of itself.
I mean, it basically is just a single family residence with like a open space underneath. And so I don't believe that it does. I've already spoke with Byron Toy. I don't know if he's present now, but I had a conference call with him about this. And as long as there's living quarters on it, it's not like a oversized garage. It is a residence. It's like a single family residence. So I'm just building a cool single family residence. I probably shouldn't even have called it a barn dominium. I just get on Pinterest too often. But my other, just one more note I wanted to make on that other lot is that I am willing to spend all the money on surveying it and replatting it and doing all of that. And that is development. I don't have the money I want to build my primary residence on 2731. I don't have that money right now. But I am willing to spend the money to survey it and make this land make more sense for the way the land lies. No one's going to do anything with it. And the Wyandotte County is not going to get any more money. And it's just going to sit there without a sewer and surrounded by my properties. So please reconsider there, because I will develop, like, I am happy to replat it. I'm happy to go to the expense of that, which we're talking, between $5,000 to $10,000. So this land makes sense. So again, just please consider it.
Thank you, Ms. DUMA. Commissioner Townsend, any other comments or questions?
Well, only about the barn again. I think people understand what a garage is, but the only question from a variance or use permit is the barn aspect of it. So,
and I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah,
if that fits or not.
I can speak to that. We did discuss that in the staff advisory committee. As long as it is, as Ms. DUMA is talking about, it's kind of your normal garage, garden tools, that kind of stuff. It is fine, does not need a special use permit. The only reason it would need a special use permit is if she had decided to store kind of large scale machinery in there.
All right, thank you for that clarification. No, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from other members of the committee? I don't see any coming up. And so I guess my question for staff would be if we want to consider all of these as one. I guess I'm going to look for some direction from the committee on this as well. We have 4 applicants, and do we want to consider all 4 applicants and all associated properties in one motion and vote? Commissioner Townsend.
Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of clarity, I would like to see us just act individually on each one of these. I mean, there will be no question if we do that. So for clarity's sake, I'd like to see us do that. And I'll start it off by moving to approve the application at 643 North 54th Street.
There's been a motion to approve as submitted. Is there a second?
Second, Johnson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the option on 643 North 54th Street. Any further discussion among the committee? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That takes us to our second applicant, but there are three properties to be considered here. That's Ms. DUMA with 2725 Glen Rose, 2731 Glen Rose, and 2750 Glen Rose Lane.
Motion to approve 2725 Glen Rose Lane.
Walters, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Townsend, by virtue of the fact that you have specified 2725 for approval, are you recommending not approving 2731 and 2750?
Question for council with respect to that, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if we have to act one way or the other on these, or if we do take no action on that. I'd like to know what council says about that. Must we articulate an action on each one of these?
If you don't vote to move it forward, it will sort of languish. You could vote to send it back with instructions, and then could be brought back.
So it's in no woman's land. I started saying no man's land. I'm going to say no woman's land. Okay, so I get it. So, all right, let me revise the motion then. No, let the motion stand and we'll take the others in sequence. Thank you for that clarification, Counselor. So again, my motion is to approve the application with regard to 2725 Glen Rose Lane.
Commissioner Walters, are you okay with that clarification? All right.
Yes.
I saw your lip. There you go. I saw your lips move, so I knew that you had said yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's go ahead and have a roll call on that one, please.
Sure. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That takes us to 2731 Glen Rose Lane. Is there a motion for that property?
Motion to deny the application for 2731 Glen Rose Lane and 2750 Glen Rose Lane.
Walters, second.
All right. There's been a motion and a second to deny both of those applications. Is there any further discussion among the committee?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burrows.
Yes, sir.
I just want some clarification. Are we planning on, if we deny these applications, they will be lost, or can they come back next month once the other issues may be resolved?
Well, I'm going to ask for staff to clarify this, but my understanding of this, Commissioner, would be that this application would be denied, but that those properties will remain in the land bank and those properties will remain available, and a future application could be made for either or both of these properties. And staff, please check me on that to make sure I understand.
Commissioner, that's correct. Yeah, Ms. DUMA or whoever, if she gets to a point where she's ready to build at 2731 and that property is still available, we would love to see another application from her.
Okay, so it does not close the door permanently on these, just on this particular application. Anyway, I'll just stop right there. So we have a motion and a second to deny the current application for 2731 and 2750. Any other discussion among the committee? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That takes us to consideration of the third applicant at 6235 Kansas Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Townsend, motion to approve the application for 6235 Kansas Avenue.
Johnson, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve that application for option as submitted. Any further discussion among the committee? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That then takes us to our final application for 1032 South 25th Street.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Townsend, motion to approve the application for 1032 South 25th Street, subject to the amendment with respect to the width of the building, as previously discussed.
Second. Johnson.
So we have a motion and a second to approve, provided that any building constructed conforms to the setback requirements and screening guidelines. Any further discussion among the committee? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Those are all of the items in item number 2. That's the last item on the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee agenda. This committee is adjourned, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Burrows for Economic Development and Finance.
Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan. Give everyone a few minutes to maybe change their notes around and or whatever notes they may have, information they may need. Then we'll go ahead and get started. We have a long evening ahead of us this evening. Before we get started, though, I do want to, before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, as well as on site. As participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public knows that the observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants. And I lost it. I apologize. Let's see here. Number of critical given the number of participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this evening meeting. So I will now call the meeting of the Economic Development Finance Standing Committee to order, and I do want to welcome everyone to this meeting this evening. And I see that Mr. Bryant has joined us, so I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call. Bryant.
Here.
Okay. Walters,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
Burrows.
Here. Thank you. Now, there are no revisions to tonight's agenda, so that takes us to our minutes. I believe you've all had an opportunity to review the minutes. I'll entertain a motion for the August 31st minutes.
Walters move for approval minutes.
Townsend, second.
We do have a motion and a second. With that, I would ask the clerk again to please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant.
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Now we'll get down to business. We do have 9 items on our agenda tonight, and I believe Catherine Carter will be the star of the show again this evening. You have a long night ahead of you. So item number 1 is the issuance of star bonds for the Village East project. At this time, I would recognize Kathleen Von Atchen.
Good evening, Chairman, we are presenting 3 items related to the Homefield Star Bond project. This project's been discussed on occasions. My item relates to the issuance of Star bonds, and so it asks for approval to forward to the full commission an ordinance of sales tax, special obligation, revenue for the village EB and Series 2020, and as well as approving the execution of certain bond documents in connection with the issuance of the bonds and authorizing other actions in connection with the issuance of these bonds. I would like to take you to page 3 of the ordinance, which statements outlines the take place prior to the issuance of Star bonds. I did want to point out quickly that Star bond special unique financing method available to local governments here in Kansas. It's unique in that it's a partnership with the state of Kansas and ourselves, where we are both contributing sales tax revenue and transient guest tax revenue towards the repayment of large bond issuances to finance infrastructure improvements that in the hopes of promoting development, and namely, so this is a special financing technique available to governments in that the sales tax.
Kathleen, you're really breaking up. I don't want to interrupt, but we're losing a lot of your conversation.
Ooh, really? Okay, well, thank you for telling me that. My internet's been a little weak today. So I did want to point out that the project plans have been approved by the Planning Commission as well. And on October 1st, there was a public hearing held, which the project plans were approved. On November 5th, a public hearing was held on the project plans, and the ordinance for the project plans was finally approved on November 5th. And so this bond issue, this ordinance actually proceeds with the sale of the bonds. At this time, I have with me Gina Rekoff, who can answer any questions from you. She's with Gilmore and Bell. She's our bond counsel. At this very moment, we have left the total amount of the bond sale blank because we're still working through the financing structure. Our goal is to issue the bonds in beginning in December, but namely early in January, in order to comply with the construction schedule that we have proposed in the project plan. So the reason for now there is one thing that I did want to share with you, and that's that there's a state statute that limits the coupon or the amount that investors can earn as yield on the bonds to basically the 10-year treasury plus 3% on the tax exempt bonds. And so that today's 10-year treasury is roughly 84 basis points or 0.84%, right, which means that the total coupon is only 3.84%. And we feel that that's going to be challenging to basically entice investors to invest in this bond issue unless we offer them what we're calling a discount, which would in effect cause the total par value of the bonds to be greater than the planned $70 million. Right now, $70 million is the first tranche of the bond issue. There's a subsequent tranche planned in a year or two. So right now, we are still working with the developer and the potential private placement investors to land on a suitable yield. And so that is still ongoing and those negotiations are happening. And I would refer any, detailed questions to Gina Rekoff, our bond counsel, who has been very integral in those negotiation conversations.
Thank you, Kathleen. Committee, any questions?
Yes, Commissioner Walters. So why do you say there may not be a market for these bonds? Is that experience from other jurisdictions trying to issue bonds these days?
Well, there's a market for the bond, but it has to compensate investors at a suitable level. And so we don't believe that 3.8% would be an appropriate yield level.
Are other cities having similar problems?
Yes. But there aren't any other cities issuing star bonds at the moment. So the part of the issue here is because of COVID, the Treasury reduced interest rates back in April significantly. And so the 10-year yield is usually around the 2 or 2.5 or 3% level. But because yields are so low right now, it's unusual. So, Gina, would you like to add any comments towards his question?
Sure. Gina Rekoff with Gilmore and Bell. Nice to be with you this evening. Commissioner Walters, to your point, earlier this year, there aren't any other cities that are in the market right now with a star bond issue. However, earlier this year, the city of Derby did a star bond issue and had a similar experience to what Kathleen is talking about. The coupon rate was lower than the yield that investors would be looking for. And in that circumstance, the city of Derby did issue the bonds with a discount in order to give the investors the yield that they were looking for on the bond transaction. I'd say, we're working with the developer and their investors to find an appropriate rate of return for the bond issue. And we believe that we will settle on an appropriate rate of return to compensate investors for the kind of risk that they're taking on with this particular project. I think we have a degree of confidence that we will be able to get there with them. The point I think that I would keep in mind from your perspective is that as part of the development agreement and the Star Bond project plan, the first tranche of bonds to fund $75 million worth of project costs. Typically we fund $75 million of project costs, plus we pay cost of issuance and fund a reserve. And so your principal amount of bonds that you're authorizing in your bond resolution is, $85 million to accommodate all of that. But because of the original issue discount that we would need to include in the bond transaction in order to generate the yield to investors that they would need for their rate of return, we will need to issue a higher principal amount than normal. And so this would be something that you don't see terribly often, but something that is just mathematically necessary in order to offer the rate of return that is necessary for a market transaction that has this rate of risk.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? I don't see any hands up, and I'm trying to monitor both panelists and attendees. So I do have a question, and Gina, maybe you can help me. Is it normal practice that we would leave that on page 3, as it was discussed, I believe that Ms. Von Action pointed out, that we would leave that area blank and then go ahead and approve the resolution and the agreement, and then those monies be filled in later? Is that normal practice for us?
I would say usually what we do is build in a not to exceed principal amount, or we give you an estimated principal amount that we would subsequently come back and revise closer to the sale date or on the sale date for the bonds. In this case, because the amount of discount is unknown and frankly pretty highly variable, depending on the spread between treasuries and whatever an appropriate rate of return that will ultimately negotiate with the developer would be, we didn't feel like it was appropriate to set a dollar amount in this resolution at this point. But come to you and explain that we would bring a final principal amount to the commission that would fund $75 million worth of project costs per the development agreement that was approved on November 5th, plus cost of issuance and any required reserves, all normal stuff. And then plus whatever accommodation we needed to make for the original issue discount. And it's that variable that we just don't know right now. And it could be a sizable dollar amount. And so we didn't want to guess. And we wanted to explain this to you instead.
Well, and further, we if I understand right, we're hoping here in time for the December 17th commission meeting, where the full commission will be that.
Kathleen, you're breaking up. I didn't get any of that conversation on my end. I want to make sure I understand what we're doing. What I would hate to see us do is put something forward that puts us into a commitment, and then we can't get to the numbers agreeable and the commission has an issue with it. So I'd like to do it. I want to make sure maybe our council can provide us some guidance. If we're going to move this forward, but we don't know the numbers, I'm not used to doing business that way.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is a little bit different because of the unusual circumstances. I think as Kathleen indicated, we will be coming back with a final number. So, I mean, you're not just approving a blank. You will get that final number. It's just it's not ready at this time. Is that correct, Gina?
Yes, that's correct. And we would have the full package with the coupon rate and the yield and the principal amount. But again, knowing that this ordinance would not fund any more than $75 million worth of project costs, as you have approved. I would say that it is extraordinarily common that you would move forward a bond ordinance without knowing the yield on a bond as of the date of the committee meeting. And so this is really no different than that situation where there might be a general obligation bond ordinance and we don't know the final rates until the day that we actually price the bonds. But that information would be completely made available to the commission before they made a final decision.
Well, I mean, no disrespect, I would just have a higher comfort level if council said this is how they want to proceed. I'm not used to signing or advancing projects without some kind of data as to what the cost will be. You've given me a $75 million window. It sounds like it may be the ceiling, but yet I heard you earlier talk about the coupon being up to 85 million. I do remember going back through the contract council and reading that there would be $2 to 1, I believe, or a 60-40 participation rate on the second portion of the Star Bond project. Is that how we're going to make up this coupon rate? I'm just trying to make sure I understand how we're coming forward in finding what it's going to cost us to participate in that bond proceed. I'd like some clarity.
Gina, can you help on that?
Yeah, I can. I was waiting. I didn't know if Kathleen wanted to take that.
Well, I would love to answer, but I'm a little concerned that I'm breaking up and you won't be able to hear me. So go ahead.
So I would say that, again, it is extraordinarily common that it would be very uncommon at this point in the process for us to be able to tell you what interest rate we would lock in on these bonds today when it's not, and the expectation is that the contract to purchase the bonds wouldn't be executed until December 16th or 17th, when this ordinance is approved. And so it really is, I think, this is common practice. The only difference here is, what I would refer to as bond math, in terms of the original issue discount that is offered for the sale of the bonds in order to generate the yield to the investor that is acceptable, given that we have a state law limitation on the coupon that we can pay. And so I guess the point that I would make is that we absolutely will not fund any more than $75 million worth of project costs, plus cost of issuance and any required reserves. That's a limitation that is set by the project plans and by the development agreement that was approved on November 5th. In a world where the U.S. Treasury, the 10-year Treasury is higher, is at 5%, for example, and the coupon rate that we could set on the bonds and the yield that an investor would demand, let's say it's 6% that an investor would demand as a rate of return for these type of bonds, then in order to fund $75 million worth of project costs and pay cost of issuance and the like, we'd be talking about an $80 million bond issue or thereabouts. And we would come to you with this ordinance filled in saying that we want to issue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $80 million. Here, because state law requires us to keep the coupon low, approximately a 3.8%, and the market rate of return on or yield on a bond like this is more in the 6% range. Because of that disparity, in order for the coupon to be at 380, which is required by state law, and the rate of return to an investor to be at a 6% range, we have to sell the bonds at a discount. So in order to generate $75 million worth of proceeds, because you sell those bonds at a discount, you might have to sell $100 million worth of bonds, but to fund $75 million worth of project costs. It does not change at the end of the day. The yield on the bond is the return that you will provide to an investor. So you will pay them back the principal plus the principal that was issued. So in my example, the $100 million plus interest at a rate of 3.8%. Okay, so you have the sum of those two amounts. If we weren't in this world with an artificially low coupon, you would be issuing $75 million worth of bonds and repaying that $75 million plus interest at a rate equal to 6% in my example. So
Right.
the total dollar amount that you would repay to an investor would be exactly the same in my two examples. It's just what you call what you repay someone. Is it principal or is it interest? And is it part of the discount? And because of the state law limitation, that is really what is causing us this challenge in terms of setting a principal amount of the bonds. And it is a situation that we just have not faced, frankly. And we need another couple of weeks to figure out what that principal amount might be. Does that help?
It does, Gina. Thank you so very much. And that was a very thorough explanation, and I appreciate it. These things can be quite complicated, and it just goes back to the question that Commissioner Walters raised in reference to what's our ability to sell these bonds. And we're entering into an agreement here with no cost associated. We keep talking about a $75 million issuance, but we don't know what that discount will be. Plus, we don't know if the market, if you can get there, and if the market if they're marketable.
I will say, Commissioner, that the developer has brought an investor that is ready, willing, and able to purchase these bonds at a yield that we believe is a little bit too high. We are negotiating with them right now to try and bring down that yield and reduce the cost to the unified government, the interest rate essentially. And so we are actively working on that right now. As you might expect, we won't be able to settle on that actual amount until we are very, very close to the date when we will sign an agreement, a bond purchase agreement, committing to to sell those bonds. And that's very, very typical that we wouldn't lock in that rate until the day of, and we would bring you that rate the day that the commission acts.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, just to clarify, these bonds will not be made available to the public to purchase?
That's correct. It would be a private placement with a qualified institutional buyer or accredited investor.
That goes back to the person of interest that you're working with now.
Yes.
Thank you. I also have a hand, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend. Well, considering Commissioner Walters' initial concern, and I appreciate Ms. Rykoff's summation, I still have to ask the question, with all that we don't know, why is it necessary for this committee to take any action right now if we can, to some extent, fill in the blanks on the not to exceed amount in a couple of weeks? What are we really gaining by taking action tonight as a subcommittee when maybe the next time that we have a full commission meeting later in the month, a more complete presentation could be made and some of these variables identified more specifically?
Well, Commissioner Townsend, I think it's just the need to advance it. If you don't advance it tonight, it won't get to that full commission hearing. And so it's just the need to advance it so that when they have the final number, it can be heard at the 17th. But if you don't advance it tonight, we wouldn't be able to do that.
So we could advance this without a recommendation and ask that a fuller explanation be given at the next meeting, right? I think that's been done before on similar actions, because I'm a little bit shy of uncomfortable because we have so many unknowns. And if in a couple of weeks, those knowns will be known, then maybe that would be the better time for an action. I mean, I have no, I guess, problem with that. I don't want to do anything more than move it. I'm not, if I don't have to make a recommendation other than just to move it forward.
Right, sure. You could just make a motion to advance, and I mean, you wouldn't have to specifically state a recommendation one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, if we didn't advance this, council, my understanding that the developer would like to see this move forward because of the property. Is that correct? Am I true in my summation that this sends a message to the investor that we are sincere about the property being taken control of by the developer?
I know there's a pretty tight timeline. I don't know if Catherine or.
Yeah, I think they, I don't have confirmation that they have closed, but they were scheduled to actually close on the property this week. So I will assume, having not heard one way or the other, that is moving forward as scheduled and should be good. But yeah, they, I think the tight timeline now is that they would like to issue these bonds before the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So, Commissioner Townsend, you had, did you have a motion that you wanted to present, or did you just want to ensure that we understood your line of questioning?
Well, I'll make I'll make a motion that I'm comfortable with and hope someone will join me. So I would move that we advance this item to the full committee at the next reasonable opportunity, and that at that time, a fuller discussion be presented to the full body for action up or down. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Walters, I'll second it.
So we do have a motion and a second. I would ask the clerk if there was any comments received from the public.
We received no comments.
Thank you. With that, a motion has been made and second. I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant. Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. And I do appreciate everyone's patience. Gina, thank you for your input. That takes us to item number 2. And that is the UG's intent to issue the industrial revenue bonds for this project. So this is where Ms. Carter comes in. So Ms. Carter?
Thank you very much. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. I am hopeful, I dare even say that I think the next few should be fairly straightforward. These are all procedural items. So that means that they were basically items that have all been approved already in concept through the development agreement. These first two as part of the home field development agreement, and then the following one as part of the linear project agreement. So again, all of these already approved by this committee and the full commission through the actual development agreement. Now it's kind of going back and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So, and I would also like to mention, in the last minute, I have received confirmation that the home field team has closed on the property and now is the brand new owner of 200 and some acres that was formerly owned by the Henry family. Additionally, $375,000 that was kind of the back payments that the Schlitterbahn folks had not paid as part of the casino grant funding that has been wired as part of the closing to the UG and will be available in future grant rounds. So all good news with this project moving forward. What this first item is a resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds. This is again, previously approved already in the development agreement as of November 5th. So this is somewhat recent that you all saw this. So basically what this is an abatement, or it's really an exemption, not an abatement, exemption of sales tax on construction materials for the home field core project, as well as what we call a certainty IRB. So we determine what we believe 100% of the property taxes would be, and then put a pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes, schedule together. This provides assurance, kind of certainty to both sides. So the developer who's building the project can plan, knows exactly how much in taxes they will be paying for the next 10 years. And then for the unified government, this provides some certainty that we know exactly how much we will be receiving from them for the next 10 years. There won't be any, going to BODA or something like that and trying to get a lower rate. So we know exactly what we'll get. Would also like to mention that we have received an application for a similar certainty IRB 100% pilot on the multifamily. That is kind of that next phase. That is the only one that we are open to doing something like this with. The rest will all be paying 100% of their property tax as assessed. So as you can see, this was part of the development agreement. This is kind of the pilot schedule that has been agreed to. Again, we did a cost benefit analysis, as we always do with these type of projects. All the taxing jurisdictions have a significant positive annual rate of return. And these numbers work into the revenue generation that we went into in greater detail as part of the full project. But once the entire project is built out, this money in terms of their tax payment, their pilot, as well as as I mentioned, 100% of the other tax revenue will get us to almost about $4 million annually from this property, again, when it is completely built out, as well as some significant sales tax for the dedicated sales tax funds. And that's all I have for this one.
Great. Any questions, committee?
Move to approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
McKiernan, second.
There's been a motion and a second. I would ask the clerk if we received any comment from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant. I'm sorry, Mr. Bryant, did.
Can you not hear me? No. You sound like Chewbacca.
We'll go on with the roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
And Mr. Bryant, are you there?
Aye.
I heard you that time. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. That takes us to item number 3. And I believe this has to do with the termination of the Schlitterbahns CID. And so, Catherine, we should probably get an explanation.
All right, happy to do so. Yes, exactly what you just said. This ordinance is terminating the Schlitterbahn Community Improvement District that was put in place in 2013. You can see this old map of what that contains. Really, this was part of the Homefield Development Project. There's no need to have a CID, or this CID, I should specify, in place. CIDs have very specific budgets that are and uses that are laid out when that petition is approved. This is so that you all know when you are approving a CID, you know exactly what that is going to pay for. So a lot of the things that were, kind of specified with this CID are very specific to Schlitterbahn, and as that is no longer operational, this CID is no longer necessary.
Wonderful. Pretty straightforward. Any questions, committee? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find hands here. I see no hands from the committee. I would ask, this is an action item, so we'll take a motion.
McKiernan, move to approve as submitted.
Johnson, second.
We do have a motion and a second for approval. I would ask the clerk if there was any public comment.
No comments received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I would ask for clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. And we're moving right on through this. I want to get to item number 4 at this particular time. And I believe this is the Willie Lanier project. And I believe staff will guide us. We have 2 action items dealing with this issue this evening. That this is the Willie Lanier project seeking industrial revenue bonds and transient guest tax funds. And they both will require separate votes. So with that, Catherine?
Thank you very much. Yes, so this are two separate items. Again, similar to the ones that you just voted on, this is a procedural item. Both of these items have been agreed to in concept already through the development agreement and the TIF project plan that the full commission approved back in March and July, respectively, of this year. Just a little reminder, as it's been a little longer than the home field one since you all have heard this one. So just a quick reminder, this is a combination of multifamily apartments, a fitness center, a retail, as well as a brand new Reardon Center for a meeting space, about $23 million here on the corner of 5th and Minnesota. So there are two items, again, items that have been defined and approved as part of the development agreement. The first is just a sales tax exemption on construction materials. So different from the last IRB that you approved this evening, that resolution of intent had a whole pilot schedule for payment in lieu of taxes in terms of the property tax. This one is solely sales tax exemption on construction materials. Again, their construction is anticipated at just over $23 million. So that is the first one. Or I can, I'll keep going and then.
Yeah, just do it.
Okay, great. And then the second item is an ordinance to authorize the use of funds that are part of the transient guest tax. This is to pay a grant in the amount up to $1 million to reimburse the developer for certain project costs, very specifically related to the new Reardon Center. As you may recall, the idea was to take some of those funds that the city had already kind of put away in terms of what we would plan to do for kind of a renovation of our current Reardon Center. Now seeing that that renovation and the significant investment needed to kind of bring that up to kind of the state-of-the-art level that we would like to be providing in our downtown is no longer going to be needed, as we will be demolishing that and building a brand new Reardon Center. Really, this is a kind of movement of those funds to assist to make sure that that Reardon Center is everything that we feel it should be.
Committee, any questions? Any comments? Catherine, I just want to talk about transient guest tax. I'm not real pleased to see this transient guest tax that go towards this project, because we didn't maintain the original Reardon Center to the extent that we as a responsible government should do to one of our public buildings. So this $1 million that is going into this project was really a savings to us by not having to raise the former Reardon Center and or put any investment into that Reardon Center. And so now what we're doing, we've avoided that cost, but now we're pulling it out of the transient guest tax money. That can be used for economic development. I understand that. I just want to, I would hope that the commissioners understand that those dollars are limited, and with the impact of COVID to our community, those dollars are going to be greatly impacted moving forward. And those transient guest tax is an opportunity for us to invest in projects that are for economic development. But in this particular case, it was related to not only the raising of the Reardon Center, but the fact that we didn't put any money into the Reardon Center to maintain it to the extent it should have. And that's the HVAC, new carpet, and the other areas that the building needed. So I've made my public statement. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
McKiernan, move to approve as submitted.
Johnson, second.
Mr. Chairman, could we, are we doing the resolution of intent first?
Yes, we're going to.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. I move to approve the resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds as submitted.
Johnson, second.
Thank you, commissioners, and I apologize, commission. I thought we were going to do them separately, as I stated at the beginning, but just for clarity. I do want to add, we do have a motion in a second. I do want to ask clerk if we've had any public comments.
No comments received.
Thank you. With that, we have a motion in a second. I would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. The second part of the action on this item this evening is the use of the transient guest tax funds to the project, Willow in the Air project. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I do see that Commissioner Townsend has her hand raised.
Thank
Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan and Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with regard to the remarks you made about the use of the $1 million, we see these projects over such a long period of time that you, if not forget, become a little bit cloudy, I'll say I do, on some of the details, but I thought that this was money, the $1 million that was specifically earmarked for the use of the Reardon Center and couldn't be used for any other purpose. Please, let me know if I'm wrong, Miss Carter. Wasn't there an amount that otherwise would have been or could have been used only for renovations for the Reardon Center?
So this was certainly money that had been earmarked over the past many years for that specific use. I would need a legal opinion about whether that was really legally tied in, that, what would be needed to use that for other items. But I can tell you that was the intent of those funds, was to go to the renovation of the Reardon Center.
So this is Patrick Waters, Legal Department. I believe in the development agreement, we had two different sources, and that one, and I see our outside counsel, Tom Lasala, is on the line. He may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but we had the dedicated Reardon Center fund as well as the transient guest tax fund. And so I don't know if he can speak to where this specific, if this was a dedicated source, or if this is from the more just the general transient guest tax.
Mr. Waters, you say Mr. Sala's on the line?
I am, Commissioner. I'm sorry for the delay.
Thank you.
Tom LaSalle is on. Patrick, I believe you are correct. There was this dedicated fund that was there, and the pledge of ongoing TGT is something separate and distinct. So what you said is correct.
Okay, that clarifies it for me. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Burrows, for your remarks, because it's good to know exactly what the situation is. So I appreciate the clarification from all the parties. Thank you.
Well, this is Kathleen Von Atchen, the CFO. I just want to point out that the funds, the $1 million figure that was set aside for improvements to the Reardon Center is currently, pending or sitting in the special asset fund, not in the transient guest tax fund. So that's a separate funding source aside from the TGT, as Patrick mentioned.
And if I may, Catherine, that's why I made the comment in reference to it was a cost avoidance for us, not putting the dollars, those set aside dollars, into the Reardon Center and or paying to have the Reardon Center raised or remodeled, whatever the commission chose to do. So this transient guest tax is new dollars. And so basically we have just saved $1 million in the city's budget and chose to take it from the transient guest tax as an economic development incentive. I guess that's the quickest way I can boil it down. And if that's wrong, please correct me. Yes, I see Mr. McKiernan. I'm sorry, Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that you are correct in your assessment of the situation, but given the fact that we as a commission have previously approved the development agreement that had allocated these monies in this fashion, I do believe that at this point in time, I have no objections to moving forward with it and would be glad to offer a motion to approve the ordinance for the use of transient guest tax if the opportunity presented itself.
Thank you, Mr. McKiernan. And the purpose of that was just to ensure that this has been out here a while and we hadn't had a chance to retrace some of the discussion. But I did want to ensure that as your chairman, that we put this information forward so that we all know collectively moving forward what we're charged with doing here. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain your motion, Mr. McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move to approve the ordinance for the use of transient guest tax funds as submitted.
Johnson, second.
We do have a motion and a second. Again, I would ask the clerk if we have any public comment.
None were received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I'd ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you, committee. I appreciate your work and your attentiveness on that. Now we move to item number 5, and it is an amended development agreement and related assignment and assumption agreement for the Legends Apartments and Garage project. This is another one of those that has been around a while, even before my time serving as your chair of this committee. And I would ask that Catherine Carter once again present this evening.
Thank you very much, Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. So the final item I have for you tonight is another one. It's kind of an interesting kind of all of the projects today were kind of you've seen in previous iterations. This one we'll get into kind of the history, but this was first approved by the commission as a development agreement for the Legends Apartments and Garage back in 2015. There have been a couple different iterations over the years. We feel really good about where we are with this one. And with that, I am actually going to, before we get into the specific project terms, going to turn it over to Bob Becker with Draley Construction and Patricia Jensen. Let me pull up their presentation.
Good evening. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Members of the commission, my name is Patricia Jensen with the Rouse Fretz Law Firm with offices located at 4510 Bellevue in Kansas City. Here today on behalf of Legends 267 LLC, and Bob Becker is with Beckcal and Luke Draley Construction. Before Catherine goes into the details of what the agreements are and what they cover, we want to give you a description of the project that we're proposing, as well as Bob's experience and why he's different and will make this project happen. I want to first say we've really enjoyed working with the unified government to bring this to a reality. So we're looking forward to moving on to the next steps. Catherine, if you would advance here is an overall rendering of the project. I want to note that we've submitted the zoning application. I'm sure some of those renderings will get fine-tuned as we move through that approval process. The next slide. And to describe the project, it is 267 units of Class A urban style luxury apartments. They are 1 and 2 bedroom high-end market rate units. And there is a parking garage that is fully covered. There's many amenities for this project, and it's pretty unique in the unified government. So you can see all of the amenities we've highlighted. Next slide. This is really where the project fits in conformance with what we're talking about. So Legends 267 is right up here next to the Residence Inn, but all of the projects that the unified government has been instrumental in moving forward are highlighted on this screen. And we believe this project is really the next step of bringing additional residents to the unified government. Next slide. And this is an aerial picture of the project site. Next slide. Catherine, you can flip through these. These are a bunch of perspectives of what we're proposing to build. You can keep flipping. There's like 5 of them. And then a little bit about the development team, and I'm going to ask Bob to highlight his experience. So Bob Becker is the president and founder of Luke Draley Construction. He is a commercial construction company specializing in design, build, construction management, and general contracting. He's built many projects throughout this area. We're going to highlight a few. And he is very, very excited about the opportunity to build this project in the unified government. Bob, are you on?
I am on. How you doing this evening?
Good. Do you want to add some information?
Yeah. So again, thanks for everybody's time tonight, and we're super excited about being a part of this project, and with UG's commitment to the future is probably one of the biggest reasons that we're doing this project. So we're pumped about the Schlitterbahn, the Urban Outfitters, Amazon. We're super excited about it. What we're doing, guys, is we're planning on building a 510,000 square foot monster 8-story, 267 units with 350 plus parking spaces. You know, we sincerely feel the stunning appearance will draw attention from miles away. I think, honestly, this is going to add a lot of value to the overall Legends area. Our focus is 70% on 1 bedrooms, 25% on 2 bedrooms, and we're looking to target the young professional. We're bringing a lot of cool amenities. I don't know if y'all been to the Chicken and Pickle down in North Kansas City, but our interior courtyards, where the zero entry pool is going to have a lot of that concept. Indoor, outdoor entertainment. You can close the garage doors. I know this is a lot of information, but we're bringing I'm going to call it the urban style concept to the suburbs. So kind of picture maybe a 2-light downtown, except a little bit of a smaller version of that. That's 20 plus stories. This is 8 stories. This thing will be a monster. It will be the second largest, tallest building in the Legends area, Cerner being the tallest. But we're 1 story below the Cerner. So we're super excited about it. We have financing in place. We kind of consider we're kind of down to the 10-yard line, ready to score a touchdown. Obviously, we got to dot a few I's, cross a few T's. With your approval, if we get your approval, then we will break ground sometime in March. Just to kind of go back through a little history of Luke Draley Construction. We spoke about this about a week and a half ago. We've been around since 1997, 23 years. Prior to that, I worked for a large commercial contractor, and then I formed my own company in 97. Obviously, felt like I had a better way to do things. And as of today, we've come a long way from building multifamily projects to large office complexes to retail to industrial, the whole 9 yards. Here's a project right here that's called the Promontory. We talked about a week and a half ago. That's 291 units with a parking garage wrap, which is towards the back. And in the front here, you've got 30,000 square foot of retail with 291 apartments sitting on top of it. It's got that top sky lounge, which we're going to have a sky lounge in our project. They have 2 enclosed courtyards. Ours, one big open courtyard. Okay, so here's a view of one of the courtyards with the big screen. We'll have big screens like that in this project. You know, you might flip through some more pictures here, Patricia. Obviously, there's an exterior elevation at night. So we call that the man cave at the promontory. So we will have a similar feel on this project as this right here. If you can see, you got garage doors there in the distance. You can close those during the winter time and still have a place to entertain your people. We will have a top of the line a top of the line workout facility. You know, with this new normal, guys, with this COVID, we felt like we needed to add some more amenity space, which the promontory does not. Obviously, this is prior to the COVID. So we've increased the amenity space to create workstations. I don't want to mention Starbucks, but it's going to have a little bit of a Starbucks feel to it. Okay. So to kind of sum this thing up is, here's a picture of a project we did with the Tutera Group. We just finished a $100 million construction program with those guys. We built the Mission Chateau at 83rd Mission Road. This is up north. Here's Brighton Creek. This is a project that we developed a couple years ago. That's an aerial view of Brighton Creek. So we've got, we're kind of a jack of all trades, right? So anyway, with our vast knowledge of construction, this is not a typical developer project. You know, nothing against developers, love them to death, we do business with developers. But sometimes they can't see how this thing's going to get built. And I think that's one of the reasons that it scared a lot of people off back when this thing got approved originally a couple different times. So we looked at it hard. We just finished a similar project at the promontory, and we've made changes to this compared to what we did at the promontory. So typical developer is not going to see the things that we're going to see. As you guys know, in the development game, 80% of the risk is in the construction. And since we are a construction company at heart, but have the ability to develop, and we just don't go out and develop projects just for the heck of it. We're kind of picky. We love the Legends area. It's 10 minutes from my house. I live just north of there. And obviously, we love the excitement that's been generated with what I mentioned earlier about Amazon and Schlitterbahn and what have you. So we're super excited about this project from that standpoint. Just a couple other things. If you look right above the garage there, that's kind of on the third floor, I guess. We have one, the garage has 1 story below grade, 2 stories above, and that's a glass handrail right there. That's where the pool is. That's a 0 entry pool. That's going to be looking directly to the south. You'll be able to see the ball stadium. You'll be able to see the baseball stadium, the soccer stadium, the racetrack. If you guys get a chance, what you might do is drive up to the top floor of the existing garage, and that will give you a view of the height of the first level of apartments, along with the 0 entry pool and what have you. You can look up top there on your left, that Sky Lounge. I don't know, Patricia, if you can point to that or not. Yeah, so that's going to be catered to all the residents. They will have a big screen TV. a grill, fire pits, what have you. And then back on the lower level where the pool is, you're going to have bocce ball, you're going to have pickleball, you're going to have, big screen TVs, you're going to have yoga studios and the workout facility, which is just to the left of the glass wall there. You have workout facilities, yoga studios, your workstations. We put a lot of thought into this and spent a lot of time and a lot of money to make sure what we were doing was going to work. It's not about quantity, it's about quality with us. That's why you guys don't see us out there every day working with other cities. We like the UG's cooperation working with us to date. They've been awesome. A couple of things kind of from a timing standpoint is we've got everybody teed up. We plan on breaking ground April 1st at the latest. We've turned the architect loose on most everything. We do have meetings with our precaster this week to get that kicked off. So we are all in. Also to add to that, me and my partner, Chuck Calvert, and our wives are going to personally guarantee the construction of this project. That's how sold we are on this area and this project itself. So the kind of way I metaphor it a little bit, we're kind of down to the 10-yard line, and we want to score a touchdown with you guys. So that's kind of the project in a nutshell. And is there any questions?
Here, I will go into, before we get quite to questions, thanks so much, Bob, and Patricia for that explanation of the project. I'll go into a little bit of the history and then some of the deal terms that are part of this restated and amended development agreement. And then I'd recommend going into some questions. So as I mentioned at the top, this was a project originally devised back in 2015 with Legacy Development, who's affiliated with the Legends Outlet Shopping Center, of course, and then kind of moved a couple years later. Project morphed a little bit, and we had our first amended development agreement in 2018. That was also when the CID was formed and bonds were issued. Those bonds that are just kind of sitting there in escrow, waiting for this project to materialize. We are really excited because a couple different things with kind of what you have in front of you today. Very much of the kind of core project has remained intact since the previous development agreement. So, with that, we don't feel like we have lost anything. And Luke Draley Construction Company and BetCal, their kind of development arm, will be kind of taking the assignment from the original developer, being Legacy. So Legacy will no longer have any obligation. They will be selling the property to BetCal and Luke Draley Construction, and then we will have our deal. If this moves forward, this would be specifically with this assignment and the development agreement with the new entity. So to go into, just kind of reiterate a couple of the things that Patricia and Bob mentioned. This will be newly constructed first-class apartment complex with structured parking garage. It's almost a $54 million project. We are looking at just over $13 million of improvements to be paid with those CID bonds that were previously issued a couple years ago. The number of units, 267. The original development agreement called for no less than 265. The previous kind of iteration said that maybe they would go up to 300, but we really felt like you were still being kind of true to the original project as long as we kept with that no fewer than 265 units. And so at 267, they are saying consistent with that. The number of parking spaces has remained consistent. So 620 parking spaces. Again, it was in previous development agreements that at least 350 of those must be free and open to the public. So this really is looking at the, ooh, hopefully my internet's okay. Let me know, wave your hands if I'm breaking up. It just says I'm unstable, apparently. Okay, thank you. This really is looking to the previous parking garage, which on days where you have a lot of people shopping at the Legends, you have maybe a sporting game, some other things that can definitely fill up. And so this will add another 350 public spaces. There will be a vehicular bridge that would connect the two parking garages, which I think will be a good amenity for those looking for parking in the area. And as Mr. Becker mentioned, the schedule is very fast, which is exactly what we'd like to see. So we want to get this thing moving. So as he mentioned, their goal is to break ground here in just a few months, in March and April at the very latest, with that parking garage being completed by March 1st of 2022, and then the apartment building completed by August 1st of 2024. Additionally, there will be some sidewalk construction that was part of the original agreement that they have agreed to as well. And then just kind of quickly going into some of the deal terms. Again, very consistent with previous development agreements. So you have the CID bond proceeds. That would be about approximately $13.3 million to be used to pay, again, very specific eligible expenses, land, sidewalks, and primarily the parking garage is the big one there. And then industrial revenue bond financing. So this would be similar to what we saw previously tonight, 10 years. Again, this is much more of a certainty industrial revenue bond. So what was calculated at the previous development agreement was with a value per unit of approximately $65,000, what would be those property taxes on that building. And so we use that same per door pilot number to come up with what you see in front of you. So it starts at about $351,000 annual pilot with a 1% annual escalator. So over the course of 10 years, through this payment in lieu of taxes, we'll be getting almost $4 million. Additionally, there is LBE, MBE, WB goals in place. If those are not met, there would be an additional 1% added onto that escalator of that pilot as a penalty, as well as a reduction of $400,000 in CID proceeds available to the developer. And then just kind of reiterating what Mr. Becker said, I do think it is really important because of the time frame and because we're trying to get this project moving quickly to take full advantage of the CID funds. The developer has stated that he and the co-developer will be providing a personal guarantee as well as a maximum price and payment and performance bonds for the improvement. So we wanted to make sure, and they were on board with, as soon as a dollar was spent of the CID, that we would be pretty well guaranteed that this project is moving forward and will be done so to completion. And with that, I would open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Catherine. And Mr. Becker, thank you for your explanation in the slide. Ms. Jensen, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I did not. That's the presentation. There is a recommendation letter from Mayor Rose in Riverside at the end of our presentation based on her experience. But we would request that you move forward.
Thank you. Committee, questions, comments? I did see a hand up, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Townsend. Good evening, Mr. Backer. With what Ms. Carter just mentioned in terms of the anticipated completion of the apartments in 2024, this may be premature. However, I asked Mr. Lanier over a year ago, similar question with regard to the anticipated rental cost for these units once completed. Now, I know there may be some fluctuation between now and 2024, but for the current moment, what do you anticipate the rental costs will be for these units?
Great question. I apologize for not covering that earlier. The rental rate's going to be very similar to the Village West, which is about a mile to the west of our proposed location. So it's going to be very similar. Now, obviously, like you said, 3 years from now, we're not for sure where everything is going to be, but you're going to look at a range from $1,000 to $1,600, depending on what one bedroom you're going to take or what two bedroom, but minimum 1,000, max 1,600.
Okay. Will the cost of parking be additional to that, or will it be included in the price of the rent?
It will be additional to the rent.
And what about utilities?
The resident will pay their own utilities.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Great questions. Any other comment or concerns? I would ask the clerk, was there any public comment or questions?
No public comments were received.
Thank you. I do have a question for legal, and this goes back to the acquiring of property to the another facility we owned in Wyandotte County. I believe it was the former T-Bone Ball Stadium. There were some questions the public raised in reference to fees that weren't paid when there was a transfer, the property was made. I remember that being an issue. So I would ask staff, what is our policy on transferring property that has any delinquencies and or liens against them or anything like that? Do we have what's our policy on that?
Yeah, if there are any liens, all of that would be paid at the time of the property sale. So the unified government would be whole, would be made whole with the sale.
And would it be the same with any delinquent fees, taxes, anything like that?
Correct.
Okay, great. Mr. Becker, I want to thank you for being not only an investor in our community and a developer, but being a member of our community. That I really do sincerely appreciate that. It's nice to have those that want to invest in our community and be part of our community at the same time. So I look forward to a very class project in that area. Again, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. And if the place looks anything like these renderings, I'm sure it will be a first-class facility.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that, Commissioner, and we're looking forward to doing more projects with the unified government. This won't be our first, so again, we appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Committee, I would entertain a motion.
Walters, move for approval.
Second, Townsend.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, committee. I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Thank you.
Committee.
Thank you all very much. And Commissioner Townsend, it's nice to hear your voice again. Commissioner Townsend and I went to law school many, many years ago together.
Oh, okay, you said enough. I thought that was you. Good to see
I'm
you.
not going to identify the number of years, but.
You said enough. It's so good to see you.
Yes.
Go UMKC.
Yep. Anyway, thank you all.
We'll have to
Thank
get
you.
together.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Two very strong and successful ladies. That's wonderful. With that, we move on to item number 6.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome, Commissioner. It's absolutely my pleasure.
I will say this. I did let the man cave comment slide earlier, so I will come back and ask for a spa on that other one. You know, that's how we do it later. Thank you.
The nice catch. The next thing we have is, I believe, item number 6, the sale of bonds and temporary notes. And I don't believe this is an action item. Oh, it is. I take that back. So we have the sale of GO bonds, temp notes, PBC bonds, and I believe Debbie Johnson is here to present that this evening.
Good evening, commissioners. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I have, yes, this is the a resolution for the sale of bonds and temporary notes for the sale will occur in February of 2021. I do have a short presentation, so let me put that up. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the resolution is authorizing the offering of sale of general obligation temporary notes and general obligation bonds, and also requesting the Public Building Commission to issue lease revenue bonds. So what I've done here is listed out on this slide the projects by revenue source. So these items are the same totals that are listed in your sale resolution that was attached with the item. So we have the tax levy projects, which are the city projects, for a total of 57.6 million. Enterprise fund projects, which are the sewer and stormwater projects, at 100.5 million, and public building commission projects, which are the county building projects, at 4.475 million. And I will just note that each project can only have debt issued up to the amount that has previously been approved. And the amounts could include projects that are already ongoing that have current temporary notes issued on them, or there could be new financings.
Thank you, Debbie. And something happened. I lost my screen. I apologize to the committee. Committee, you do have in your handouts, you should have all of those items that are listed under the bond request. So
yes, the resolution should contain all the projects that make up these amounts.
Yes. Any questions, any comments? Does any member of the committee have questions or comments? Clerk, I would ask if a member of the public have any comments.
No comments received.
Do you want?
Wonderful, thank you.
Are you able to? You're not able to see my screen? Is that what you said?
No, I can't see your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually got a couple more slides to go through.
Okay.
That's okay.
I might have to get off and come back in for some reason. I've lost everything.
Okay. And I do believe the presentation was sent out. And if you have any questions later, you can always feel free to give me a call. But my next slide, can everyone else see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. The next slide was just a reconciliation from the 2020 sale resolution, which was approved last December before we issued the 2020 bonds. And there's just a reconciliation of the projects that were the sale resolution that we approved, the actual issuance of 2020 temporary notes and bonds, and then also the amounts that were authorized, but we didn't actually issue. And then I've reconciled all of that on how we get to the 2021 sale resolution. We include not only the temp notes that were issued, but we also include the amounts that were authorized, but we didn't issue. We add in any projects that were reimbursement resolutions, and I have another slide on those, as well as I'm including projects that were approved in a prior year, prior to the 2021 budget, but that could potentially be financed, that weren't financed in a prior year. And then I've also subtracted out the funds that were not included in the sale resolution to get us to the totals that we have for the tax levy funds and the enterprise funds. The next slide just has details out the projects that were reimbursement resolutions. We had 3 projects that were reimbursement resolutions last year. So we approved the projects, but we didn't issue any financing because at the time they weren't sure of the work that was going to be done and we couldn't identify it. So we didn't issue it. But those 3 projects are being financed in the 2021 issue, and they total $2 million. And then we have $6.25 million in the 2021 reimbursement resolution. These projects are all authorized, but they're not being issued currently. Most of these are annual projects or emergency projects, and they're not identified until a project is actually brought forward. So we're not issuing the funds on these, but they are authorized and they do have the budget authority to complete the project if it comes up. The next slide shows the project budgets that are not included in the sale resolution. And between the tax levy projects, the enterprise fund projects, and the public building commission projects, there's $77.2 million that is not included. And I did just want to note that when I say they're not included in the sale resolution, we're not removing the budget or debt of authorization. We are simply just not funding them in this next bond issuance because we don't believe the funds will be spent within the next 12 months. All of these projects have their authority so that they can enter into contracts, and we are issuing some of the funding for these projects, with the exception of the 2 building commission projects. All of the other projects do have some funding within the 2021, but the amounts that are shown here were previous budget amounts that were authorized, but they just haven't got to the point of spending all of the funding yet. As you can see, the governmental projects, which are the city debt, there's $5.4 million. For the sanitary sewer projects, there's $71.2 million. The largest of those 2 being the Cop Point Biosolids Digestion Project and the Walcott Expansion Connor Creek Project. The Public Building Commission projects, we have the 2 annex projects that we have not included. They were not ready to move forward with those projects. And if they determine within the next year that they are ready to move forward, then we would bring back a separate sale resolution for those 2 projects. So we are asking for approval of the sale resolution tonight. As I said earlier, the bonds will be sold in February 2021. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd open up for any questions.
This is Commissioner McKiernan. It does not appear that Commissioner Burrows has rejoined us yet. So at this point, if I might facilitate on behalf of the group, Commissioner Townsend has a question.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Good evening, Ms. Johnsher. I have one question about one of the slides that you showed, and it had to do with 2021 money, specifically with regard to Fairfax, $100,000.
Was it the reimbursement resolution
Yes.
on this slide?
Yes. Could you put that slide back up?
This one here. This one does have the reimbursement resolution with Fairfax Industrial for 100,000.
That's the one. And on the handout that I have two that are identified for 2019 and 2020 funds that are supposed to be part of the bonds, but you're saying this particular one or item for 2021 is not part of the bond, but there's money in the budget for this, because I know this is an annual amount that Fairfax expects to see.
Yes, we're issuing a reimbursement resolution on only the 2021 funding. The 2019 and 2020, which are each 100,000, are in the current sale resolution to be included as temporary notes or bonds in this next issue. The 2021 funds, when we requested the information for funding, they didn't have the projects identified yet for this funding. So we issue the reimbursement resolution so that once the money is spent, we can come back and reimburse ourselves with a future issue. So we're not taking, they're not losing the funding. We're just doing a reimbursement resolution and not financing the 2021 funding at this time. But we are funding the 2019 and 2020. 2019 and 2020 were issued as reimbursement resolutions in previous years. And now that they're ready to finance those projects, we're adding them to the next issue.
Okay, because I can assure you, if you talk to FIA Fairfax now, they could enumerate a list of projects that will gobble that 100,000 up. So just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Right. Yes, they're not losing the funding. We're just choosing not to include it in the financing, but we could reimburse ourselves with a future financing later.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan. I appreciate you guiding the committee. I was having some technical difficulties, but are there any other questions of Ms. Johnson in reference to the funding? Do we have any comments, clerk, from public?
No public comments.
Wonderful, thank you. Committee, I'd entertain a motion. This is an action item.
Move to approve, Johnson.
Townsend, second.
Motion been made and seconded. I would ask clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Committee. Now we move to item number 7. This will be for information only. I believe the remainder of the items this evening will be for information only. And I believe this is the third quarter budget to actuals report and the CARES PPI summary. I will recognize Kathleen Von Atchen as well as Reginald Lindsay for the presentations this evening. So please, the committee's
Actually, this is Debbie Johnson, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'm going to step in for Kathleen. She was having Wi-Fi issues. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I am.
Because I'm getting some feedback, but I'm not sure where it's coming from. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the revenues for the third quarter budget to actual report. So we'll start with this first slide, which is an overview of the consolidated general fund. And it shows third quarter year-to-date budget versus actual for both 2020 in comparison with 2019.
Debbie, you have just gone on mute.
Debbie,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now you're back.
Okay, not quite sure how I got on mute. So this is the consolidated general fund showing the third quarter year-to-date budget to actual for 2020 in comparison to fiscal year 2019. For 2020 revenues, we've received 84.8% of budget through the third quarter. And in 2019, at the same period, we were at 80.6% of collected for revenues. On the expenditure side, for 2020, we're at 68.8%. And for 2019, we were at 70.9%. Let's see. And then the transfers in and out are netted together. So it's a little more difficult to see what those, since the transfers in and the transfers out are netted together for that. So for the next slide, this is showing the detail on the city general fund revenues. On the top left, we have listing out all of the different revenues showing the third quarter actuals compared to our 2020 amended budget. And the lower right is showing the actual revenue collected, the percentage of revenue for the third quarter comparing 2020 and 2019. And I will just note, so looking at the graph on the top left, property tax, we have collected 100% of our property tax. Sales tax, we're at 85.8%. Intergovernmental revenues, we're at 100, we're a little over 100%, and most of the others, with the exception of the miscellaneous and transfers in, we're at about 70 to 75%, which is where we would typically expect to be in the third quarter. Some revenues, such as the property tax, the biggest distributions are in January and June, and so by the end of June, we have usually collected about I think 75 to 80% of the property tax revenue. So, and now that we are at the end of the third quarter, we have collected 100% of that. Overall, we're at a total of 80.4% for the city general fund. And then down on the bottom, it just shows the actual 2020 is in red and 2019 is in blue. And then there's a target showing a dotted line showing where we would be if we were at 75%, which would be 3/4 of the year. On the next slide, just shows the same information comparing the actual revenues for 2020 and 2019 for each one of the different revenue line items. And as you can see, we're third quarter 2020 actuals are almost identical to third quarter 2019 revenues, with just a slight increase from what we had over the third quarter in 2019.
Debbie, Commissioner Burrows, a question. Is the miscellaneous and transfers in, is any of that money the COVID dollars?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Are any of the dollars being presented here, any of the revenue, is that any of the CARES Act money?
No, I believe all of the CARES Act money was recorded. We put that into a separate grant fund. I think Reggie can probably confirm that, but my understanding was that all of the grant revenue went to a separate fund that we set up specifically to track those revenues.
Great, thank you.
So the next slide is the Reggie, can you advance to the next slide? Thank you. The next slide is the same. The next couple slides are the same information for the county general fund. So we're showing here the detail for all the different revenue types for the county general fund. As you can see, the property tax, once again, we have collected 100% of the property tax. For sales tax, we are at 86.5%. We've got 81% for other taxes. I think most everything is pretty much in range. Intergovernmental revenues are at 85%. I believe most of the intergovernmental revenues are grants, state or federal revenues. And so overall for the county general fund, we've collected 92% of our total 2020 amended budget. And then the graph on the lower right shows the same information, just the percentage of revenue collected, comparing third quarter 2020 with third quarter 2019. And the dotted line represents 75%, which would be 3/4 of the year. The next slide just shows the detail, showing the actual dollar amounts collected. And as with the city general fund, we're very close to the third quarter actuals for 2019 on the county side also, with only a $221,000 difference. So just slightly below the 2019 levels. So with that, I'll turn it over to Reginald Lindsay to talk about the expenditures.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes, sir, Reginald.
All righty. So what we have on the screen here are the 2020 expenditures for the City General Fund. We got two different views. We have the budget comparison in the upper left corner, and then in the bottom right corner, we have year-over-year actual comparisons. So the things that we're looking here for in these two charts is we want to make sure that the expenditures are no more than 75%, since we are reporting on the third quarter. And as we look at the chart in the upper left-hand corner, we're kind of comparing the budget to what has actually been spent. So we got 6 different expenditure categories, which are personnel, services, supplies, grants and claims, and capital outlay, and miscellaneous transfers in and out. And the magic thing that we're looking for is a percent of budget. We don't want to see anything that's over 75%. So we can see in the personnel category, which consists of salaries, pension, and overtime, that we're like 67.5%. We just kind of compare to last year. Last year at the same point in time, we were at 72% in the personnel category. Also, one of the things that we have had hit here, one of the things you've been asking about, Commissioner Burrows, we did have like $4.8 million in personnel expenses that was reimbursed for CARES dollars. So that's about 4% of that budget. So that difference between, I talked about 72% last year and 67.5% this year, that's about 4%. So you can kind of see that that did help us out there. And kind of give you, in comparison, last year's personnel budget was $113 million, and this year's $112 million. Next category, services, consists of transit, trash contract, and also city jail expenses. Last year, that budget was like a $23.5 million budget, and we can see this year it's a $22 million budget. So we got like 72% of that has been spent this year. In comparison, last year we were at like 74%. And we did have like $192,000 that was reimbursed there for CARES dollars. And kind of jumping down, looking at the bottom line, we can kind of see we're like 67% of just total expenditures within the City General Fund. And if we look at the bottom right-hand chart, we can kind of compare last year's third quarter year to date to this year's third quarter year to date. And we can see we're about $4.6 million down in the personnel category. So that's about 6%. So that's 6% less money than we spent last year. Services were down about 8%, and supplies were down about 24%. And as you kind of look at the bottom line, you see overall we're down 7%. So looking pretty good at this point in time. And again, we do have like some of the CARES money that was pulled out within the city general fund.
Reggie, this is Commissioner Burrows, if I may. The budget, while it still shows that we're down 7.5 million, we are on track. If we look at our actuals, we look like we are on track to beat our 2019 actuals in the third quarter, or year to date. I'm sorry, yeah, year to date. It looks like we can beat that number as we move forward, because if the CARES dollars went into the personnel and other items, we may very well come to a near push. Property taxes are up, valuations are up, so, and sales taxes are up. So I'm just looking, just throwing this out as how we may be seeing, or some of us may be seeing this information.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So we are $7.5 million down, and that's $7.5 million less that we have spent in the 2020 third quarter compared to the 2019 third quarter. Yeah, and we definitely are tracking in the city general fund. Right now, we're tracking about 4% below, like what we set the budget at, and that's definitely lower than what we came in at last year in the city general fund.
Reggie, please go ahead. Yeah.
Current slide here is the county general fund. It's the same information. We got two different views. One of them is showing the budget compared to the actuals. So that's the upper left-hand corner. And then the bottom right-hand corner, we're looking at year over year. And again, here we're looking for expenditures to be below 75%. So looking at the chart in the upper left-hand corner, we can see we got the 5 different categories as we did on the previous slide. We can see we're at personnel, which is our largest category. We're 73.5%. We did have $490,000 that was reimbursed for personnel there, and that's like 1% of that particular budget. So we did receive some help there. Also in personnel, just some of the expenses there are salaries, pensions, and payouts. And then in services, we were trending about 70%. That's inmate, medical, and farm out. And we can also see, kind of jump down to miscellaneous transfers out. We're like 73%. And jumping over to the chart in the bottom right-hand corner, kind of do a comparison of year-to-date for the 2020 third quarter compared to 2019. And we can see that we're up about 1% there in personnel compared to last year. Services, we're down about 2%. And then supplies, we're down about 16%. But overall, we're up about 6% compared to last year in the county general fund.
Questions, anyone, as we move along? Please don't hesitate to raise your hands. Staff is willing to answer any of the questions. Okay, Reginald, please.
All right. Current slide is a snapshot of our 7 tax levy funds outside of the city and the county general fund. On the left-hand side of the page are the revenue financials. On the right side of the page are the expenditure financials. what we're looking for our revenues to be over 75% and for our expenditures to be over or be below the 75%. So as we can see here on revenues, most all the revenues definitely are over the 75% threshold. And over on the expenditure side, we do have one expenditure fund that is over the 75%. That is our city and bond interest fund. So what generally happens there is we pay some of that up front. So that's why we're at 89%. But you see all the other funds are definitely below the 75%. This current slide is a snapshot of our 19 other funds that consist of special revenue funds and enterprise funds. And again, like the previous chart, the revenues are on the left and the expenditures are on the right. If the revenues are over 75%, we're tracking well. And if the expenditures are below 75%, again, we're tracking well. So one of the things we have going on with the revenue on the left side of the page, we do have 7 funds that have not met forecasts at this point in time. So the first one we have is the alcohol fund. One of the things that can happen here is that all the revenue for the third quarter hadn't came in when we reported this, so there is a good chance we could recognize that number. Next fund that is not met is the court trustee fund. Is at almost 70%. So one of the things that happen here, we could be impacted by the economy about as far as people not being able to pay into the court trustee fund. And then another fund is the sewer system, which could be impacted by a lag in payments coming in, and then also could be impacted by the economy also. And then the stadium fund could have both a lag there and an impact by the economy. And same with the stormwater fund. So over on the expenditure side, we do have some funds that are not meeting the 75, that are over the 75%, and that is the emergency medical fund. So one of the things that happens there, we do pay for things up front, as far as like buying vehicles and things like that. So that's one of the reasons that EMS could be over. Any questions on this slide?
Committee questions? Seeing none, please proceed, Reginald.
All right. So I'm going to bring up another PowerPoint that kind of touches on the CARES funding a little bit more.
Reginald, I don't, there it is, okay.
All righty. Everyone see my screen fine?
Yes, sir, I do.
All righty. So back in July, Mayor Alvey formed a committee that included Commissioner Markley, Commissioner Philbrook, and Commissioner Bynum, and internal management from the city of Bonner Springs and Edwardsville and the unified government. The committee's priorities was to distribute funding among taxing entities and nonprofits and small businesses within Wyandotte County. On September 7th, the State Office of Recovery accepted the Unified Government's CARES Act reimbursement and direct aid submission. You can see down here that amount that was accepted was $37 million, and it was broken out into those 3 pots: public health, cities and counties, and education and nonprofit. This current slide breaks down 21 departments within the unified government that was reimbursed for unbudgeted COVID expenses that would have hit certified funds. So you kind of see the 21 funds, and the total was $5.5 million. And then off to the right, you can kind of see the different categories as far as commodities and contractual services and personnel costs. See how that money was broken out between those categories that was spent in those 21 departments. This next slide is a breakdown of the UG Cares direct aid budget, and this is funding that was not reimbursed, but money that came forward to help us improve adaptability during COVID times, and then provide robust public health response to the community, and also direct aid for risk mitigation while we do business here at the unified government. So we have 21 departments, and between those 21 departments, $19 million was received. Here we have direct aid transfers that went to tax entities and nonprofits within Wyandotte County. There were a total of 47 organizations that received $6.5 million. And on the screen, we see the top three as far as dollar amount that went out. Also, we had direct aid program that went out to 20 nonprofit organizations within Wyandotte County, totaling $3.4 million. And that consisted of 20 organizations. And on the screen, we can see what the top three out of those 20 organizations as far as dollar amount that was received. Are there any questions about the current slides I just went through?
Committee, questions? Reggie, this revisiting of the CARES funds, I do appreciate it. I know the main question I got was the community college receiving their 900 and Bonner Springs and Edwardsville receiving less. And I know that the initial dollars were divided by population, but the question I couldn't answer was why the community college was able to draw down the amount of money they did versus the city of Edwardsville and Bonner Springs.
And I don't know the answer to that. That was something I would have to find out for you.
Commissioner, this is Alan Howes, Assistant County Administrator, and the answer is that they were drawing from different pots. So the community college was drawing from the pot that was allocated for educational institutions. The three cities, so Kansas City, Kansas, Bonner Springs, and Edwardsville, were, as you noted, allocated by population from the amount that was set aside specifically for local governments.
Thank you, Alan. Any other questions, committee? Seeing none. Reginald, Debbie, thank you so very, very much for the presentation.
So one of the things, I'm also going to turn it over to Shea within Economic Development. She has some more information related to CARES that she wanted to share tonight also.
Okay. Shea?
Good evening. Are you able?
Yes.
To see the presentation? Okay, so we wanted to come before you all this evening to give an update specifically regarding the small business and the COVID-19 assistance that they received. And we can go to the next slide. We'll provide a quick funding overview. We just wanted to give a synopsis of the three different types of funding we provided to small businesses in our community. The first is our Economic Development Department grants. which is annually budgeted in our general budget, and it's $50,000. If you all recall, we came before the commission in March, immediately following the stay-at-home orders, and asked for revisions to our normal grant program so that we could provide COVID assistance to those businesses immediately. And we were able to provide that $50,000 awarded in April. The second is our WICOLA's local grant program, which was funded through CARES Act. And that allowed us $825,000 to issue to businesses in Wyandotte County. And the third is through our partnership with ALTCAP. We were able to get $266,000 in loans to businesses through PPP loans that they administered and the KC Region Relief and Recovery Fund. And so I wanted to share with you all the businesses that received the small business grant with that initial $50,000 that we had in March and issued in April. These are the 10 businesses that were able to receive $5,000 grants at that time. So the WICOLA's local application was created through the CARES Act Fund. We got official notification that we were approved for the $825,000 to be spent on September 15th. That's the approval from the state. And prior to that time, our staff worked on creating an application, an online application that allowed grants to be used to reimburse for revenue loss and or COVID-related expenses. The parameters that were set were businesses with 25 or fewer employees were eligible for $10,000, and businesses with more than 25 employees were eligible for $20,000. We opened our applications on September 17th. This was done via press release, as well as using social media, and we rely heavily on our business resource partners to share this information with the businesses that they work closely with. On October 7th, we closed our application after receiving an influx of applications and knowing the limited amount of funds that we had received. We had already received enough applications that we knew we had far exceeded the amount of money we were able to distribute. And just to give an overview on how these applications were reviewed and scored, we really wanted to focus on making sure we helped the businesses that were forced to close due to the stay-at-home order and that had experienced a significant revenue loss. And another key factor is those businesses on a national and local level. A lot of our smaller businesses had a difficult time obtaining federal dollars through the PPP program, as well as other loans that were available to what's determined a small business on a federal level. So we wanted to make sure that these funds were available for them as well. And on the next few slides, you will see a list of the 85 businesses that were awarded grant funds. We have a wide range of businesses from everything from restaurants to daycares, dance studios, entertainment venues, and a variety of industries were represented through this loan program. And our next slide shows you the distribution and the location of where these businesses were located in our community. It was all of Wyandotte County. There were businesses in Bonner and Edwardsville that received the grant funds as well. So this is just to highlight the locations of the businesses that did receive the funds. And to summarize, the grants were awarded to reimburse for revenue loss and or COVID-related expenses. We received 133 applications and awarded 85 of those applications. They were from 11 different zip codes in Wyandotte County, and 67 of those awarded applicants have 25 or fewer employees, which goes back to that population that we were really trying to target are those that had a more difficult time receiving the funds through other channels. One of the things that we were most excited about, if we can go to the next slide, is that through these programs that we implemented and through economic development, as well as our partnership with AllCap, we were able to provide over $1 million in COVID relief to Wyandotte County businesses. We understand that there's still a huge need for funding, and we've tried and continue to try to stretch the funding that we have available as best as possible. But I will say that we do feel very confident if more funding becomes available. We have created a system that will allow us to streamline the process and get the funds to the businesses that may be in need in an expedited manner. And before I conclude, I just want to say thank you to the Economic Development Department, CARES Act team, purchasing, accounting department, and all of our business resource partners and staff who assisted through this process. As we all know, this isn't what we expected this year, but together we were able to have a huge impact on the businesses in our community and have helped some of them keep their doors open.
Yeah, thank you. I think that information is extremely important to be shared. I wish there was a way we could get it out to the community as a whole, so that those small businesses know that they have an attentive government under these most trying of times that is there to assist. Shea, might I ask, do we know the amount of money? There was 87 grants approved. Do we know the amount of dollars needed to have fully funded the entire 130 some requests?
If I don't know it, it's 1.5. It's around 1.5 million, but I don't know the exact number.
Great, thank you. With the minimal amount of dollars that we had available, it looks like we were quite efficient in getting them out. So I really appreciate you sharing that information. Committee, is there any questions of any three of our presenters this evening? I don't see any hands at this particular time. Let me make sure. I see no hands. This was for information only. There's no action necessary. And so if no further questions, we'll move on to item number 8, which I believe will be the third quarter budget revisions of anything greater than $10,000. And that is Reginald, I believe, is going to make that presentation.
Yes, thank you. So when departments request to shift funds greater than $10,000 or have money added to their budget for contingencies, a request is sent to the county administrator's office. So this last quarter, we had 3 different budget revisions. One from Parks and Rec for athletic field improvements. And then we also had one from the Sheriff's Department for clothing purchases. And then also we had one within transit for dispatch software. And so all these budget revisions were done within the departments, and the total for all of them were $101,000.
Do we know which item was, Reginald, you didn't have a slide. Which item was the most over the 10?
There was the athletic fields for Parks and Rec was $50,000.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Questions, committee? This is something that we had requested earlier on when I became your chairman. I wanted to ensure that this information continues to get shared. If we have no questions, there's no action necessary. This is not an action item. That will allow us to move into item number 9, our fourth quarter revisions, expenses greater than $50,000 within the budget. Mr. Lindsay will make the comments again.
So one of the things that we have within our budget policy is that if we have a budget revision over $50,000 that is done for emergency purposes or to sustain operations within the unified government and is approved by our county administrator and Mayor Alvey, it needs to come to the next 10 committee. So we have 2 of those that have happened within the 4th quarter. One was within Public Works in the sewer system, and then one was within the police department. And they're both a total of $315,000.
Any questions, committee? Clerk, have we had any public comment or questions related to the last 2 items?
No, sir. No comments received.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Committee, any other questions or comments? Reggie, I want to thank you again for your presentations and the overview. That is all I have on my agenda for this evening. You've all been very attentive. I sincerely appreciate that. I know our constituents appreciate it very much. And with that, that concludes our meeting for this
Commissioner
evening.
Burrows?
Yes.
Well, Commissioner Townsend had her hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I still don't see it. Commissioner Townsend, please.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Good evening, Mr. Lindsay. On the System Sewer Enterprise Cobb Point plant remodel, was this not a budgeted item, or we're saying we went so over the amount? The amount revised was $255,000?
Yes. So the amount actually is expenses being reclassified. They were moving to another object code. It was being done out of the operating budget by the department, and we thought we needed to reclass it to actual capital dollars. So they had the funding for it, and they did not go over costs. It's just we're reclassifying where the expense is expense from.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I may, Reggie, and if you could relate this back to the CARES committee, the CARES Act money, the question I had earlier in reference to Bonner Springs and Edwardsville's share of the CARES Act versus the community college, if there, it may be a benefit to again restate why those dollars were the way they were. I think it's important that our local government partners understand why that formula was established the way it was. There has been questions raised in reference to myself a number of times, and I just want to ensure that they have all the pertinent information necessary.
I may ask Alan, he did have a nice comment when he came on before. Alan, could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, hi, Alan Howe, Assistant County Administrator. Commissioner, are you asking that we provide that kind of a refresher back to our local government partners as to the allocation, you know, how the funds were allocated and the amounts for the various buckets?
Yes. Yeah, it's particularly dealing with the community college, Alan, as well as I think part of the information I think would be pertinent too is how much money we went into the small businesses throughout the community too. I think it's just important that our other elected officials in our partnering cities within the county have that refresher information so they can once again be able to communicate that to their constituents.
Yes, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. I would appreciate that very much. Now, again, I'll ask any more comments or questions. Seeing none, meeting adjourned. This concludes it.